All right, well, we're gonna get started here. So but before we jump into the lead generation stuff, we'll let Crystal share some tips with you from.
Yeah, and so as we all know, fraud is really high. And we have this option, well, not option, we have this service called Safe Escrow, where we guarantee funds that leave our account. So not only does that include wires, it also includes payoff verification. We recently in our office had a payoff fraud, and I happened to catch it, and then I had my team confirm. So someone intercepted. So one of the credit unions here sent over their payoffs as Word documents, and someone intercepted their email and edited the wire instruction section and the amount for the loan. So it's really good to have a strong funding team that is aware and is knowledgeable in that. So this service, if I miss it, they catch it, which is really nice. And so it like I said, guarantees all the funds that leave our account. It also protects checks. So if someone has mail fraud and someone deposits checks, which we had this or happened to, where someone just deposited the checks in their random bank account, we covered those checks. So we reissued the $20,000 to the client and it was taken care of. We just handle everything on the back end. This is a fun service that we have to kind of ease your client's mind a little bit. And then I don't know if you guys are going to start attending the base camp, which is on Wednesdays. I'll also be there. But on the last Wednesday of every month, we're going to have a 30-minute window after base camp where you guys can come down and say hi to the North Star title team. We'll have a special snack that day. But you can come down, say hi, kind of put more faces to all of our names, meet our title department, ask for questions. So I'll be every last Wednesday after base camp of every month. Okay. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Crystal. Okay, well, I'm excited. We're going to talk about lead generation today. And honestly, I've got like 3 of the classes that we teach that I always feel like are my favorite ones to teach. And so this one I would say is one of the ones. And the reason I would say that is twofold. One is because it made such a big impact on my business and what it did for me in terms of getting my real estate career up and running. And 2, I guess, is because I know what it will do for you if you will take what we talk about and apply it into what you're doing in terms of your real estate as well. So so this is one of my favorite ones to teach. So real quick, from you guys on Zoom that have been on there before, we got a new camera, put a new camera up there today and have it zoomed in a little better. So typically I pull out my iPad and share my screen, but I'm hoping you guys can see when I write on here. So I guess let me know. I didn't bring my iPad, so there's no choice today, but if it doesn't work. But I would just be curious, either somebody to unmute or throw it in the chat box. Does it look a little better than what it has? Tristan said looks good. Okay, well, good. That's what I wanted here. So and part of that is we're going to start doing our morning ascents live. So hopefully starting next week, we'll getting people, we'll still broadcast it as well, but we want to have more people live and we'll just do it more this type of a fashion. So anyway, all right, so here's where we're going to start with. So I had mentioned to you guys at one point in, I don't remember which class it was last week, but I had mentioned, it was either in the business planning or the company foundation, that I had decided to go get my real estate license. I was working at a bank, and as I was working at the bank, I got frustrated because the job that I was doing there at the bank, the way you got more money at the bank was just by being there longer. Like to some extent, if you got a new job, it could potentially change your income. But the way it was structured at the time was if you started a new position, you also started just at the very bottom of whatever that range that position would pay. And I remember I had become a manager in the operations department. So kind of just to give you a background on it, if you went into a bank and deposited a check, they then take all of those checks at the end of the day out to an operations department, an operations center, which was out by the airport. And then that operations department would then process all those checks. Well, in addition to that, there at that operations department was also like if there was a return check, if a check needed to be returned because there wasn't money in somebody's account or whatever, it would run through one of the departments. Well, in the department that I oversaw, what we did is if somebody needed a photocopy of a check, we would have to go to this microfiche and print it off and get the copy of the check to then get to the customer. Or if when they wrote a check, let's say that somebody like me had bad handwriting and I wrote the check for 1,000 and some, whatever. Well, let's use this. Like I wrote 2021. I've noticed half the time when I write 2021, it looks like 204 instead of 2021. So, but let's say that that's what happened is the check then gets what's called encoded as $204 instead of 2021, then my department would go fix that. Well, I was a new manager of that department, and as I had started to do that, that meant my income was down here versus some of the other managers that had been managers for many years, their income would be up here. Well, I remember my boss calling me into his office one day and he said, hey, I've got a project for you that I want you to do. And I said, okay, great. What is it? And he explained what the project was. And then I said, well, why are you having me do that? Because that has nothing to do with my department. It really should be, this lady's name was Nancy. I said, that's really Nancy's department. Why is Nancy not doing it? Why are you having me? And he said, well, because I know you'll get it done and I'm not sure that she will. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I left and I was kind of scratching my head going, wait a minute. She makes more money than I do. I'm doing her job for her essentially now for less money. And I was like, I don't really like this. And that's what then got me looking into and thinking about getting my real estate license and to going and selling real estate. Now, so I went and got my license to start selling real estate. And as I did, what ended up happening is I had an uncle that was a builder, and my uncle, I had called him up one day and said, hey, I'm thinking about becoming a real estate agent. And I know you have agents that sit at your model homes. And I'm interested, if you guys want to grab a different table, that's okay. Like we can do one of these. Let's see how many people we can stuff at one table. All right. Okay. So so I called up my uncle and I said, I want to get my real estate license. And how much did your agents that sit, I think everybody else has had it. I said, how much did your agents that sit your model home, how much do they make? And he said, well, I have 4 of them. I paid 2 of them over 60,000 a year. The other 2 I paid over 100,000 a year. And at the time working at the bank, I was making about 35,000 a year. So I was like, sounds good to me. I'm in. So I went to real estate school. I got my license. I called my uncle and I said, all right, got my license. I'm ready to come and sit one of your model homes. And he said, well, I got a problem with that is I have 4 agents that sit my model homes. And if I were to throw you in the mix, so now there's 5, it's going to take away from their income and that would create a problem. So I would love to have you, but until one of those leaves, I can't. And I was like, okay, well then now what do I do? And he said, well, call up this guy. His name was Tom. He said, why don't you call up Tom? He's a broker at one of the real estate companies in town. And I don't know if he's any good or not, he said, but it seems like every time he moves from one real estate company to the next, all of his agents follow him. So they must like him. So I said, okay. Now I knew of this guy because he lived not far from where I did. And I went to meet with him now. And I don't know if this was this way for you guys, but when I went to go interview with his office, I showed up, I put on a suit and tie, and I go walking into his office, and like I thought I was going in for like a job interview, like that I had to get them to want to hire me. What I didn't realize is that in reality, what's happening is the broker is sitting on the other side of the desk, crossing their fingers, hoping that you'll want to go to work there. But I didn't know that. So I went in trying to put on my best effort, and I was afterwards said, well, okay, so how will I know if you want to hire me or not? And he's like, yeah, we'll get back to you. I think he caught on that I didn't really know. And so he was like, yeah, we'll get back to you. We'll let you know. And of course, then a couple hours later, he called me, hey, we'd love to have you at our office. And so I went to work there. Now, when I went to work there, I have always been the type for work that I would go to my boss and just say, tell me what you want me to do. Like if I'm going to be at work, I don't want to necessarily just sit around. I wanted to be busy and have things to do. So I went into him and I said, all right, tell me what to do. And he said, the first thing you should do is go and make a list of everyone you know. I said, okay. So I sat down and I think I went and got like, I don't know if it was a Christmas list or whatever, but I just went and got like a list of all these people that I knew. And I created this list and then I went back to him and said, okay, here's the list. Now what? And he said, well, now you should go through and write a card, that tells all these people I've started in real estate and here's my business card and send it to them. So I did. I went back, sat at my desk, I did that. Once I got that done, I went back to my manager again. Okay, now what? Tell me what to do. And he said, and I think he was kind of tired of me, like, keep coming. Okay, now what? Now what? Now what? So he finally just said, here's what you need to do. Go out and knock on doors for 2 hours every day for the next 2 years, and then you'll never have to do it again. And I said, okay. Now, let me back up on this, and I want to just share one thing with you. So he had a process that he did with me. Now, I think this is a good place to start, but don't put a whole lot of weight in what I'm about to say. But it's a good place to start. And what he said was this, is he had asked me, and I don't think I shared this with you guys last week, but if I did, stop me. But what he said to me was, how much do you want to make in real estate? And I said the number that the majority of agents say when they start real estate, which is how much? 100,000. So I said, I wanted to make $100,000 a year. Oops. So if I wanted to make $100,000 a year, he said, well, the average income that an agent gets, the average commission check at that time that you would get is $2,000. So if I wanted to make $100,000 in the next year, and I was going to get paid $2,000 essentially per closing, which is about what it was, how many deals would I have to do? 50. So what he did was he said this, however many closings you want to have in a year is how many people you should talk to in a year. Now, I think that's a good place to start, but I also learned that it's not necessarily true. Like, and you'll hear people say that, even I hear George even say it from time to time. The number of closings you want to have in a year is the number of contacts you should make. It's a good theory and it's a good place to start. But what I'll tell you, at least for me, maybe that's the way I should say it. At least for me, it wasn't true. Now, and so here's what I mean by that. So he told me, my manager said, if you want to have $100,000 a year, you're going to have to do 50 closings a year. And in order to do 50 closings a year, you're going to have to talk to 50 people a day. So I said, okay. And now combine that with the fact that he said, go door knocking 2 hours every day for the next 2 years. Okay. Well, what I found is when I would go out and knock on doors, I would typically talk to, back then, you would typically get somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 contacts per hour is kind of what it would be knocking on doors. So I had to typically go out for about 2.5 hours to get to 25 contacts. Well, I didn't want to go out. Well, actually, let me back up. That's not totally true. There was a lady in the office. Her name was Shirley. Have I told you? Did I tell you guys about Shirley? Okay. So Shirley got her license. The way I met Shirley was I was in a class like what you guys are right now, and as a new agent, and we kind of got talking and found out, oh, you're in the same office I'm at, and I just started last week. And she was like, yeah, me too. And so we decided we would go prospect together. So we didn't like go knock on doors like the same door, but when we would go out to knock on doors, she would go on one side of the street, I would go on the other side of the street, and we would just kind of keep an eye on each other. If one of us got too far ahead, we would slow down, kind of wait for the other or vice versa. But we would go out and do that for about 2.5 hours every day. And then she didn't like knocking on doors, but I preferred it because I just found I enjoyed that better. And each of you is going to have, I'd rather be on the phone or I'd rather knock on doors, and either one's fine. So what Shirley and I decided, we would knock on doors in the morning, and then in the afternoons, we would make phone calls. So we would go out for about 2.5 hours in the morning to knock on doors. And typically what Shirley and I would do is we would show up at the office at around 9-ish. We would go into a conference room and we would do some role play and we would practice. And generally I would be saying to Shirley, so pretend you're Shirley, Alex. I'd say, Alex, yesterday when I was knocking on doors, somebody asked me this. What would you say if somebody said that? And we would then practice role playing that. And so Shirley and I would do that typically about 9:15 till about 9:45. We would get together and role play and practice. Then we would jump in a car, we would drive out to the neighborhood we were going to be, and we'd knock on doors till we got to our 25 contacts. We'd go back to the office, go our separate ways for lunch. Then we would meet back up, usually around 2 o'clock. And then from 2 to 4, she and I would jump on the phones and we would sit and make phone calls together until I could get to my 50 contacts. Okay. Now, long story to get to my point here. So the point of all that was I started doing that, and what I was told, and this is where I would say for you too, is it's a good place to start in terms of figuring out how many contacts a day do you need to do. Well, I started doing that, and I had been doing that for about a year, maybe even closer to a year and a half. And I went to a training that there was a guy that he was from San Diego area. He had come to Salt Lake to do a training. I went to his training, and in his training, we were talking about kind of this concept. And I had raised my hand and said, yeah, I'm frustrated because I'm doing 50 contacts every single day, but I'm not getting 50 closings. Now, because it had been over a year that I had been doing the 50 contacts a day. And I said, I'm frustrated because I'm doing it. Everybody has said, however many contacts a day you do is how many closings you'll have. And I was like, it's not happening for me. Now, let me give you the other extreme, because why I say this is a good place to start, but it's not necessarily true, is for me, I was doing 50 contacts a day, but essentially at the end of a year of doing that, my income was not 100,000. In fact, it wasn't even close. All I had essentially done was replaced my income. So think of it this way, is I had essentially made 35, maybe it might have been 40, but somewhere in that range was my income after a year of doing 50 contacts a day. And so using this as the number of 2,000, if I made, let's just say 40,000, how many closings did I do? This is where I test your math skills. 20, right? So I had essentially done maybe 20 closings, which I don't know that that's exactly right. So my average might have been a little higher. I feel like I was more in like the 15 closings is what I had done. I'll have to look back and see. But here's the point. I was doing 50 contacts a day, but I wasn't getting 50 closings. Yet we have today in our company, Brian Burnett, who is our top agent down in St. George, that he's making $2 million a year and he does about 50 contacts. So his 50 contacts translates to 150 closings, not 50. My 50 contacts early on would translate into like 17 closings. So it's a good place to start, but it's not necessarily true. So I go to this other training, and in this training, as we are talking about it and bring this specific thing, I raised my hand and said, I'm frustrated because I came into this business to not just replace what I was making at the bank. I wanted to make over $100,000 a year, and it's not happening. Help me figure out what's going on. So here's the first concept that we're going to talk about for today is, in order for you to get the business you want, the first thing that has to happen is you've got to have the right focus. Now, so let me show you what that looks like here. All right, so this chart that I'm making here is the learning curve, okay? So that's half of a bell curve. Anytime you learn anything new, any new skill, doesn't matter what it is going to look like this. The process of you learning something new is going to look like this, where you start to work on it. So if you were thinking sports and you were trying to master a new skill in terms of sports, but it doesn't matter what it is, you're going to have kind of this, you start working on the skill and nothing happens. And you keep working on the skill and nothing happens. And then all of a sudden you'll have a huge increase in your production or the use of that skill, whatever it is. You'll have this huge run up. And then typically, actually, if we were to keep going on this, you usually then are going to have a slight decline, and then you would flatten off, and then you'll shoot up again. That's typically, like, anytime you're learning something new, that's kind of what the process is going to look like. So I'm in this training, and this guy's explaining this whole process. And now remember, I had said, I'm frustrated. I want to make more money than I'm making, and it's not happening. So help me figure out why. And so he drew this on the board. and then separated this into these categories like this. And what he said is this, is here is the process. So this is the process that you're going to go through in terms of real estate, in terms of you getting to where you want to be. Now, and here's the thing, I don't care if you're brand new, this is your first day, you got your license yesterday, or you've had your license for many, many years. If you want to go to the next level, the same concept still basically applies. So here's what he said, is in the process of this, and so I'm going to speak to typically those who are newer in terms of real estate. The first phase of this is what we would call the activities phase. So in the activities phase, what is happening is this. Now, I think I've asked you this before, but I'm going to ask it again. In real estate school, did they teach you how to sell real estate?
No.
No. What did they teach you?
You have to stay out of trouble or jail. Yeah.
Yeah, essentially, they taught you how to pass the test.
Keep your license.
Yeah, they taught you how to pass the test and then to keep the license without going to jail. I mean, this, right? So here's the problem then. So what happens then is we get done with real estate school, we go and sign on with a brokerage, and this ties back to what I was saying before. I thought going and working at a brokerage was going to be like a job. When that happened, I was going to have like somebody telling me, okay, let me show you how to do your job and walking me through it. Well, as you may or may not have recognized already, you're an independent contractor. And as such, like I sent out an email and invited probably, I don't know, I didn't count it, but at least 30 people, maybe more, to come to class today. And you can see how many are here. Like, when you guys don't come to class, it's not like I'm on the phone with you going, hey, why aren't you at class today? Like, if you can't show up to class, like maybe this isn't the place for you. Like, you'll notice that hasn't happened, right? Maybe I should do that, but that I know it's true. So so typically what happens though is because of that, if you don't kind of take the initiative to be like, hey, I need some help additional beyond what I'm getting, like I said, if you don't show up, it's not like people are on the phone saying, why aren't you here all the time? Because that you're an independent contractor. And there actually was a lawsuit in California that some agent tried to sue one of the brokerages down there because they wanted to get paid for they said, I didn't get paid overtime. I worked overtime. And the brokerage is like, you're an independent contractor. Like you don't have any of that. And they were like, well, but you didn't treat me like that. And meaning like they had called them up and said, why didn't you come to class? And they were like, well, you treated me like an employee. So because of that, for a while there was kind of this thing across the country that was like almost even, they were suggesting like at the start of this class that I should have a disclaimer written on the board that is like, you do not need to do anything I tell you to do in class today. It is up to you if you want to do it. But here's what we have found that some people would find to be a good thing to do. Like, and I was with a different company at that time when that was happening, and they were telling me that like, you got to put on any PowerPoint, you have to put like, you don't have to do this. And I was like, that's stupid. Like, I'm not doing it. So anyway, so here's the thing. In the activities phase, what is happening is this. During the activities phase is where we've now gotten our license. We feel like I don't know what I'm doing because I didn't ever learn in school. I'm licensed, but I don't have a clue what I'm doing. So what should I do? And so then we get the opportunity to help a buyer or list somebody's home. And what ends up happening is we're like, well, I probably should put that off. Or somebody says, your manager or broker in a class, we say, okay, go get on the phone and start making phone calls. And what happens is we're like, yeah, but I don't really know what to do. And what am I going to say? And how am I going to say it? And what if somebody, for me, it was, what am I going to do if they say yes? I actually wasn't worried about somebody saying no. I was more scared of what am I going to do if they say yes? So like, I don't know what to do now. So as a result of that, in this activities phase, what's going on is we're like, well, I need to go and learn how to fill out the contract. Or I need to learn how to use the MLS. So I'm going to find a class that I could go take from the MLS, and I'll go take a class and learn how to do searches on the MLS. Or I need to learn how to, what's the paperwork that I fill out? How would I fill it out? And like all of these things that are activity related is what we feel like, okay, well, I'm gonna go do the things that are comfortable, that aren't scary, that. And in our mind, it makes sense too, by the way, like in your own mind, like you justifying it of, well, I can't do that because what if they ask me to fill out a contract and I don't know how to, so I can't really do that. So all of those things are what goes on in this activities phase. Well, look at how much money you make during the activities phase. See, that's the piece that I didn't point out to you, is this learning curve also is tied to this income that we're talking about. So in the activities phase, you're not making any money. So part of what I'm saying to you right now is you got to get out of the, if you're stuck in this. Now, I don't know where you guys are at. So to some extent, I want you guys to look at where are you at in this process that we're going to go through today. But if you're in the activities phase, which is that phase of, well, I don't know what I'm doing yet, and I need somebody to show me, and I'll wait till I get through all the classes. Once I go through all of Russ's classes, then at that point, I can start prospecting. Like if that's where you're at, you're in this activities phase. And you have got to get out of that phase if you're there, which, and I don't know if you guys are or aren't, but get out of it if you are, because this is how much money you're going to make in the business. If you, as long as you stay in the activities phase, this is how much money you're going to make. So if you want out of it, then you got to get into this next phase, which is over here, which is what we would call the contacts phase. Now, in the contacts phase is where what you are doing is your focus is on contacts. See, in the activities phase, my focus is on, like, I need to learn how to, how do I access the office if I needed to get in there in the evening? What's my email address? How do I log into the MLS? How do I do a search? Where do I get the paperwork? What paperwork do I need? All of those things are activities related. So get out of that and get into the contacts. In the contacts phase is where now you're focused on, I'm going to make a certain number of contacts. So for me, so now tying this all together, the story I was telling you, I had been in this contacts phase for somewhere between a year and 18 months, where I was focused on, and I was getting 50 contacts every day. Well, I had been told if you did that, I would make $100,000 a year. Well, I wasn't. Well, so in this training that I was in, that I was telling you guys about, this guy did this training, and I brought it up and was saying, I'm frustrated because I've heard this, make 50 contacts, you'll do 50 closings, and then I would make 100,000. I've been doing it. It hasn't happened. I don't see it happening. Meaning, here's the thing. Most managers, and this is crucial that you understand this piece. Most real estate companies out there, if you were in the position that I was in, meaning even my manager at that time at that office, if I would have walked into his office and said, I'm doing 50 contacts a day, it generated for me, and I don't remember, somewhere between 15 and 20 closings for the year. So it's generated that 15-ish closings, let's say. I want to get to 100,000 and get to the 50. What do you think, just logically thinking right now, how do you think most managers would respond? What would they tell me? So pretend you're my manager and kind of forget everything I've already been telling you, because you're probably starting to get a little intuitive to where we're headed. But if I were to ask you, what do I need to do to get to 100,000 and I'm making 50 contacts a year? What do you think most people would answer to tell you to do?
Make more content.
That's right. See, usually that's the answer that people give. Is so when I was in this class and I raised my hand and said, I'm frustrated because of this, most managers recognize this. Most managers out there across the country, I don't care where it is, I'll bet 95, maybe 99% of the managers, if you walked into any real estate office and you said, I'm doing 50 contacts, I want to get to 100, what do I need to do differently? Their answer is going to be, go do more.
Or I guess there's like two options. Is if you want to keep doing what you're doing, stay it or increase just your contacts. But I mean, you could keep the same contacts and just switch up like your pitch or like just
so
get better.
That's where we're headed. Thank you, because that's just is. That's what the answer should be. Is we need to improve your skill set. So basically, you have two options. Now, here's the thing. How many hours did I already basically tell you I was spending to get 50 contacts in a day?
Pretty much all day.
No, I was doing 2.5 of door knocking. Then I was doing at least another 2 hours of phone calls. So I was anywhere between 4 and 5 hours every day of prospecting. So imagine that's you. You're prospecting 4 to 5 hours a day and you say, I want to get to 100,000, which means I essentially almost had to 3 times what I was doing. Not quite, but not, it was more than double. Okay, so now go, okay, so here's the answer. You got to go prospect 9 to 12 hours a day. Go prospect 12 hours a day. No, I'm not interested in that. So, so here's the thing. In this training, the guy drew this on the board and he said, let me show you what the problem is. The problem is focus. It's what you're focused on. And I said, okay, help me understand. And he said, and so he went through and explained this activities phase. And I was like, I'm definitely not in that phase. And so then he explained in the context phase, what you're focused on is making a certain number of contacts. And he said, here's the problem. Because that's what your focus is a certain number of contacts, guess what you get? That's what you get. And so he said, here's the problem. Now, look, if this is your income, look at what happens in the contacts phase. There's some liftoff, but not much. And that's what I found is that's what was going on is I was doing 50 contacts a day and getting to here. So here's what he said. If you want to take your business to the next level, if you really want to make over $100,000 a year, you got to get out of this phase and get into this phase. And this phase is what we would call the, I'm going to abbreviate it, but the appointments. That's the appointments phase. Now, when you look at this learning curve, what do you notice about in the appointments phase?
When he goes up.
Direct, follow up.
It's a steep curve, meaning it can happen really fast, but if you were climbing a mountain and you come up, you're walking along this, it's no big deal. But when you start up this, like what do you notice as you're climbing up that?
A little harder, the breath.
Yeah, so this is the steepest part of the learning curve. And so guess what? For you guys, in terms of you increasing your income, the steepest part of it, meaning when I say the steepest is you're going to have to put some effort into it, but that's what we're going to be talking about today. Do you want to come share some insights, Sam?
On this,
No, I don't know anything.
seems like I saw this in California.
Oh, yeah, you did. Feels like I did it then too. So, okay, so we got to get out of the contacts phase and get into the appointment. So that's what this guy said to me is he said, here's the thing. Here's the problem. Your problem is you're focused on contacts, not appointments. So as a result, guess what I would get when I would prospect? Contacts. I wasn't getting appointments. And so he said, if you want to get out of the contacts phase and into the appointments phase, he said, I can help you. And I'm going to help you guys with it now too. He said, I can help you get out of that contacts phase and into the appointments phase. But as you can see, now don't hear this as a bad thing, but it's the steepest part of the learning curve. So he said, it's going to take a little bit of effort on your part. Now, here's what he said to me. Here's what he told me. He said, starting tomorrow. So this was on a Tuesday. So just like today, it was on a Tuesday. And what he said is, now this class we were in had been a Monday, Tuesday that week. And then it was going to be a Wednesday, Thursday the next week. So it was Tuesday and we were going to have no class until the following Wednesday. So he said, here's what I want you to do is between today. So starting tomorrow, Wednesday, he said, you're going to prospect not for 50 contacts, but instead you're going to prospect to set one new appointment. Now, one new appointment means somebody you've never met with before.
Does this, when you say appointment, is this actually meeting someone or setting a lender appointment or is it
Good.
actually taking them out?
Great question. So actually I'm going to add one word to this. Schedule one new appointment. So I didn't have to actually go meet with them. I just had to get somebody to agree to meet me. So here's how I defined it, is they had to agree to meet at a specific time. So there had to be a time associated with it, not just we'll get to if somebody said, yeah, just let's get together next week sometime. That's not an appointment. Had to be a specific time at a specific place for a specific reason. meaning like they were coming in for me to sit down and do a needs analysis for them, or we were meeting at a property to go take a look at it. Or if it was a seller, I was going out to their house to look at it. So, so to meet with a lender, I would not have counted, even though it's a good thing. For me, it was, I had to get somebody to agree to meet with me at a specific time, at a specific place, for a specific purpose. Go ahead.
Second question is, are you organizing a lender appointment first before these, or it doesn't matter, you're just trying to meet them first regardless of they're pre-approved or?
Great question. So, at the end of the day,
By broker.
it can go either way. Like, honestly, I mean, I have my own opinions of it now, but going back in time to this, when he said that to me, it was just get them to agree to meet with you. That was it. Now, we will add to that though. For me today, I would add to you, and I was not intended to get too deep into this, but for me, in today's world, before I met with them, yes, I would pre-qualify them. Now, I mean pre-qualify with the lender, but I also mean pre-qualify of like finding out, like in today's market, if you came across the buyers like, yeah, I want to buy and I'm going to do 100% financing. What are you thinking?
Boy, that's
Good
tough.
luck.
Let's ask some more questions.
That's right. So yes, I would, but here's the key. To begin with, for you guys, if you are currently in either the activities phase or the contacts phase, to begin with, just get people to agree to an appointment. Like, I don't even care, buyer, broker, lender at this point. Now, over time, yes, you want to transition to that, no question. But to begin with, like for me, somebody who hasn't been doing it, just start setting appointments. Like, we'll deal with that's kind of the next step. Kind of, does that make sense? Okay, so here's what he said to me is, if you really want to start to make money, and so here's what I will tell you guys. Most of the people that are surviving in real estate, not thriving, it's because they're in this contacts phase. They're not in the appointments phase. And so what he said to me is, here's what we're going to do. In order to get you out of the contacts and into the appointments phase, he said, here's what you're going to do is you are going to tomorrow. So it was a Tuesday. He said, starting tomorrow morning, when you get to work, you are going to work until you set an appointment. He said, quit. Here's what he told me. Who cares how many contacts you make? He said, I don't really care. And he told me, quit worrying about your contacts. Now, I do think there's still value in tracking the number of contacts. And part of that I'll explain in a minute. But he said, I don't care how many contacts you make. You are going to prospect tomorrow until you set an appointment. And I was like, okay. And he said, so let me make sure you understand. What that means is you don't go home tomorrow until you set an appointment. And I was like, okay. And I was pretty young when I started in real estate. Like, so I don't know that I was the brightest or whatever, but anyway, he said to me, let me just make sure you really understand what I'm asking you to do. And I said, okay. And he said, you're going to go home tonight and you're going to tell your wife, I'm not coming home tomorrow if I don't set an appointment. And I was like, oh, like, you mean like for real, you have to set an appointment? Because I was like, well, I don't know if, because he had asked me, would you commit to doing that? Would you commit to you won't go home until you set an appointment? I'd be like, oh yeah, sure. That's no problem. Till he said, you're going to go home and tell your wife, I'm not coming home tonight if I don't set an appointment. And then it like hit me like, oh, you mean you're serious? Like, I really have to set an appointment. And he said, yeah. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to commit to that. But here's what he said is, if you'll do it, it will take your business to the next level and you will go beyond the $100,000 a year. And I was like, ugh. But now here's why. I was doing 50 contacts every day, but I probably was only making or setting maybe 1 or 2 appointments a week off of 50 contacts. So now all of a sudden he's telling me you can't go home. And I was like, oh, like I might not get to go home if I don't set an appointment. So I was a little hesitant, but here's what he said. You can do this. Like, it will work. If you'll commit to it, it will work. And I said, okay, I'll commit to it. So I went home that night. I said to my wife, hey, I went to this training today. It was really good. Here's what the guy told me is that if I want my business to really take off, then tomorrow, and I committed to doing it for a week actually, because we had class the next Wednesday. So basically the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whatever days I was gonna work. Now, he said you could take 2 of the days off if you want, but however many days you're gonna work, you have to set that many appointments. And so I had agreed to, between then and the next Wednesday, that I would set 5 appointments. So I went home and said to my wife, I'm not coming home tomorrow if I don't set an appointment. She was like, well, we've got and so you better get your appointment. Now, let me ask you a question. First, do you remember what time I said I was showing up to the office in this phase? Do you remember what time I said I showed up to the office?
9.
Yeah, 9 o'clock. Now, let me put you in that position for a minute. Hypothetically speaking, I say to you today, you can't go home tomorrow. So tomorrow you have to set an appointment or you can't go home. Okay? If that was the case for you, what time would you show up to work tomorrow?
I say 8, but you can call and
Okay.
not offend people.
I was
Say
9.
8.
I'm always waiting for somebody to be like, I'm just not going to work. Okay, good. So I'm 7, 8.
Isn't the law 9 o'clock, right? Or is it 8 o'clock?
I think it's 8.
8 o'clock is for telemarketing, for call. Yeah. So what time? So 8,
I'm saying 8.
7.
You're ready to go, like.
You can do role play for an hour.
Okay.
And I'm still feeling that.
You're still feeling 90? Okay. Okay, so for me, with that being the case, I went home, I told my wife, tomorrow, I'm not coming. I said for the next week, every day that I work, I can't come home till I set an appointment. So for me, the next day, I was at the office by 7:30. So I was kind of where you, like, I was like, okay, I gotta get, now here's the next question. Okay, if I said that to you, you can't go home tomorrow till you set an appointment. So now you're showing up at 7, 8, 7:30, 8, 9 o'clock. Now, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do to set an appointment?
Full calls.
Okay, make meaningful calls. Okay, good. What about the rest of you? Like, who are you gonna call though? Like, that's kind of even part of what I mean is like, who are you gonna call?
So
Okay, good. Why?
because you already know them.
Okay, I love it.
So
Good,
they'll meet with you.
good. Any other thoughts?
I got leads coming in because I'm on the teams.
Okay, so you're gonna call your leads. So here's what I did, is yeah, for me, I had already been for a year outdoor knocking and making these phone calls. So I had tons of sticky notes on my desk that were leads, that I just had sticky notes there, that what I ended up doing was those were the first people I called, because I was like, hey, if I got to set an appointment, I probably should call the people who have already expressed an interest in doing it. So I just started calling off these sticky notes. Well, now let me back up because I forgot one piece to tell you. The other part of the game, though, that he said is you can't go home until you set an appointment. But once you do set your appointment, then he said you have to go home. So he said, once you set your appointment, then you have to be done working. That was kind of the other side, is you can't quit working until you set it. But once you set it, be done. And now, that doesn't mean if I had an appointment, don't go on it. That doesn't mean if I needed to do a CMA or write it, like do that stuff. But he said, don't just hang out at the office just to hang out. Like, go in there, get focused on getting your appointment. Once you get the appointment, then be done for the day. Like at that point, leave and go golfing or go like whatever it is you like to do, go do it. So I was like, okay. So I had told my wife, so I get up in the morning at 7:30, I get to the office. Now, let me do one other thing. So part of the, Aiden, I'm trying to remember how you worded it. You said that you could either double your contacts, or how did you word it?
For you is almost triple your contacts or just be better at your pitch. or
Okay, good.
better
That's how
your
you said it, was be
contacts,
better at your pitch. So
better at what you do.
yeah, so ultimately, those are your choices, right? So for me though, I was like, okay, if I'm going to do it, here's how I would word it. He said, get better at your pitch. Here's how I would say it. If you want to get different results than you're currently getting in anything that you do, any aspect of your life, if you want to get different results than what you're currently getting, you have to change the approach. The answer is contained in the approach that you're taking. Okay, so you have to change the approach. So let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to show you what my approach looked like when I was in the contact space. Then I'm gonna show you what my approach changed to in this, okay? So watch. If I was to go out, and go prospecting, when I'm in the contacts phase back there, this is what it looked like.
Hello.
Hi, my name's Russ. I'm with Century 21. We just listed your neighbor's home over here on Birch and Pine. It's got 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, listed for $499. And I just was wondering who you know that would want to move into the area.
No one right now.
Okay, so have you, what about you? You thought about moving?
Thought about it, but this might get pretty crazy.
Yeah, no, don't tell me that. Because how often do they go, yeah, I'm thinking about it? I mean, it happens from time to time, but instead, usually what's the response you get? No, okay. So how about you? Have you thought about moving?
No.
Okay, well, here's my business card. If you hear of anybody thinking of buying or selling, let me know.
Thank you.
Okay, there's one. Hi, my name's Russ. I'm with Century 21, blah, 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 blah. When do you plan on moving?
5 years.
Oh, 5 years. Okay, well, cool. Here's my card. If you know, let me know. Okay, see you. Now, here's what's going on in my mind. Now, remember, what was my goal every day?
To get your 50.
Now, so stop and think about it for a minute. If my goal was to get to 50, do I want to sit and have a conversation very long with Alex?
No.
No, you're gonna be like.
Yeah.
boom, boom.
Because the faster I get to 50, the faster I can be done with this stupid thing that I hate
And go-
doing. So I'm like, you wanna buy it? No. Oh, how about you? No, you wanna buy it? Yes, no,
Yeah.
buy, sell, anybody? Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Got my 50 contacts. I would go home at night. I'd be like, whoo, I worked really hard. Felt good. I got my 50. Wasn't making any money, but I felt good. So now, let me show you. Here's the thing. When all of a sudden he said, quit worrying about this, I don't care how many of this you do. Instead, do it until now what, think about how that changes. What happens now if I can get an appointment with Alex? I don't even have to go talk to Mary. Like, do you get it? Like, that's
Yeah.
what, so to me, all of a sudden when that light turned on of like, okay, if I can get an appointment out of the first person I talk to, I don't even have to go talk to anybody else. And I can be done. Now, instead of 4 or 5 hours of prospecting, I could be done in 10, 15 minutes.
So with that, why wouldn't you want to set more appointments? Set it like.
I'm an overachiever. No,
Start small.
yeah, so you might want to, you're right. To some extent, I would even say that if you're hot and you get one on the first one, like, yeah, you should keep going. Like, it's almost kind of like, hey, if it's working, keep it going. So I totally agree with what you're saying. But I'll tell you, for me personally, where I was at with the business, that's what I needed. So yeah, could have I done that? Absolutely. But for me, it was kind of like, I don't really want to, like, I don't know how about you guys, like prospecting wasn't like top of my list of like things that I got one, let me keep going and do it. Like for me, it was like, I got one, I'm done. So yes, absolutely. I would say there came a time that I did change that. So let me show you though. Remember I said my approach changed. So let me show you what changed in the approach. And then we're gonna get into more detail with that in a second. So now watch.
Hello.
Hi, my name's Russ. I'm with Century 21. We just listed your neighbor's home over here on Birch and Pine. It's got 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, listed for $599. And I was just wondering who you know that would want to move into the area.
I don't know, but we're thinking of so.
No, don't. Too easy. Not all over so easy. Yeah.
No one.
You don't know anyone.
No.
Okay. Well, hey, I appreciate you thinking about that. Let me ask you, what about you? When do you plan on moving?
Well, we haven't thought about it.
No plans right now? Okay, cool. Well, hey, let me ask you. So how long have you lived here?
6 years.
6 years. You're kidding. That's great. Where did you move from?
I know.
Oh, really? From Idaho to here? What part?
Boise.
From Boise to here. Cool. So what brought you down here?
We have family down here and we ended up liking it.
So you got some family and just like it down here. Well, that's cool. Well, that's great. Well, so let me ask you this. If you ever were to move, where would you go next?
I like the area, so
Okay, so you'd probably just want to stay somewhere, get a different house in the area or
eventually, but
eventually? Okay, so when do you think that would be? If you would want to do that?
honestly, we've never really thought about it. It's just we're happy here, no need to move, but if the opportunity came.
Sure, yeah. So what would that opportunity have to look like?
I don't know.
So you're not sure what, so it doesn't sound like it's something that like,
It's
maybe a little bit in there, but not really.
not really, I guess the opportunity is more money, like if you have enough money for a bigger house, that would be the opportunity for,
Okay, okay, do you have any idea how much equity you have in the property?
you know, we can-
Okay, well, one of the services I offer that I would do for my clients is I will do a market analysis for you, that what I would do is, run some comparables, find out what they're looking like in the neighborhood, come back, and then we can see what kind of equity you had. Let me just ask you though, so if you were to just buy a new house, what would you want?
This one's 3 bed, 2 bath, probably go 2 more bedrooms, 2 more bathrooms.
So at least 5 bedrooms, okay, and you said somewhere in this area?
Yeah.
So what other things would you wanna have in the home?
Bigger garage, bigger yard.
Okay, so let me ask you, if I could find something like that that would work, is that something you would be interested in pursuing?
Yeah.
You would, okay, great. Well, so let's do this. I'm actually out busy working for the Jones right now, talking about their house. That's why I was talking here. But would afternoon or evening be better for me to come back, take a look at your home and see what I can find in terms of comparables and stuff?
Evening works.
Evening, okay. So would 5 or would 6 be better?
Let's plan on 6.
6 o'clock, okay. And would Wednesday be okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Boom, now, so let me ask you, what changed? I mean, obviously my approach changed, that's kind of the overall thing, but what did I do differently?
Ask a lot of questions.
Notice that I asked a lot more, I dug a lot deeper. See, here's the difference. When my focus was on contacts, like I don't want to stand and talk to you. Like, I mean, don't be offended, but the longer I sit and talk to you, the longer I gotta be out and do this. If I could crank through it, then I'm like, oh, next, hey, how about you? You wanna buy or sell? No, okay, well, next. Versus now, if all of a sudden let's do a little, I'm gonna do one more, but do it a little bit differently, so you don't wanna move. Okay, so now. Hi, my name's Russ, I'm with Century 21, we just listed your neighbor's home, it's over on Birch and Pine, it's got 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, listed for $699. And just wondering who you know that would wanna move into the area.
I don't really know of anybody. I just moved here.
Don't know anybody, oh, really, you just moved here, where did you move from?
Maine.
Oh, from Maine to here, really, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So what brought you out here?
Not.
Just to be out with the mountains,
Yeah.
because you heard we have the greatest snow on earth, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, not this
I was
past
sick
year.
of that snow. I wanted this.
Yeah, this year was not any better here, by the way, so. Anyway, well, that's great, so, and what do you do for work?
Real estate.
Oh, you're kidding. Next. Okay, so, but let's just say something else, okay? So I'm gonna chit chat, okay, well, so let me ask you, if you ever were to move, where would you go next?
Back to me.
No, I'm
Oh,
not.
no. I wouldn't move.
No, you wouldn't move.
I'm here. I'm
So
staying.
this is it.
This is it.
This is where you wanna be. Okay,
100%.
cool. So my point was, what I wanted you guys to see is when there's no opportunity for them to move, meaning like, if they're like set on, nope, not going anywhere.
Move next.
Yeah, like, and have you, how many of you have gone door knocking before? And so you've heard that I'm here until I die, they're gonna bury me under the tree, all the, that kind, okay. That, when you get that type of a person, this is how I'm gonna respond. So she's like, nope, we're good, we're staying here. So, okay, well, let me ask you this. So Mary, how are you using real estate to plan for your financial future?
I just want my kids to have this house.
Okay, sure,
Okay.
totally understand. But what I'm wondering, and probably what I would say on that is, hey, if I were you, I would want my kids to do that too. I think that's genius. I think it's a great idea. But what I was wondering is like, have you ever considered owning an investment property that would give you some passive income to come in?
No, I haven't.
You haven't, okay. So is that something you would be interested in learning more about?
Sounds like money.
Well, I know, making money sounds good, right?
Yes, sounds like I'm spending money.
Well, you have to spend money to make some money, so, but if you could create a scenario where you could get passive income, so you could spend more time up in the mountains, would that be intriguing to you?
Guessing you want me to say yes. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, we all get the shutdown, no, it's never gonna happen,
Yeah.
so we, but so, what I'm trying to show is an alternate approach when they're saying, so, yeah, I mean, if she's like, no, I don't wanna invest, next, I'm gonna go to Carmen.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, a little bit of hope. They're like, when I say,
Well, and maybe you're planting the idea in her mind where she might go, he brought that
you know, that point.
Yeah,
and hang on
absolutely.
to his car.
And we'll talk more about that
Yeah.
actually. So, notice part of what I'm doing is just saying, well, have you ever considered owning investment properties? Now, if they say no, never, I wouldn't want to do it, it's a pain in the butt, I knew somebody that did, then I'm gonna go, all right, here's my card, see you later, and I'm gonna go to the next. But what if she said yes? So I say, have you ever considered owning investment properties?
Yeah.
You have, okay. So do you own any investment properties?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. So what's been holding you back from getting properties?
The market right now, they're not less than 300,000.
Okay, so but if you could find, if you had one that could make you some money, even if it was maybe more than 300,000, that'd be okay?
Well, yeah. I just know the market, it's kind of hard, but,
Well,
yeah.
you know
I
that,
know,
they
I
don't know
know.
that, so. Now,
I'm
so,
trying to think of how.
so
to
hold
talk
on, so here's the thing, I wanna make sure you guys are really clear, so thank you for saying that. What's my objective in this phase?
Appointment.
To schedule an appointment. Now, let me tie that back to what Aiden brought up earlier. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm gonna go on the appointment. Meaning, the way she's responding right there, or even back to Allison's, the way that he was responding to me, like, if he was like, well, if the perfect scenario showed up and, you know, a genie came and gave me $100,000, I would do it, like, you know. Yeah, I'm probably not gonna go on that appointment. So just like, keep in mind, I wanna make sure you guys are really clear. The secret to this is in the scheduling of new appointments. Now, let me go though the flip side of that. What you don't wanna do is this. So listen, Mary. I know you're not interested in selling your home. I know you're not interested in buying investment properties. Will you just agree to set an appointment with me so that I can quit doing this?
Oh.
Because I have to do this today until somebody says yes. So how about if we met next week at Wednesday at 6 o'clock? We won't really meet, but just agree to it, because then I don't have to do this anymore. I can be done for the day. My boss will let me go.
Sure.
Okay, whew, like, what you don't, like, that's not gonna get you anywhere either, right? Like, so you don't want that, but. So kind of just know this. This whole thing is a little bit of a process that you're gonna go through. And what I mean by that is, early on for me, I didn't do to that extreme where I was like, just please agree to meet with me so that I can stop prospecting. I didn't do that, but here's what I did do. So Carmen, let's pretend you're a for sale by owner. And I knock on your door. Hi, my name's Russ. Well, actually, no, let's do it on the phone. So I call you up, ring, ring.
Hello,
Hi, I'm looking for the owner of the home.
yeah, it's me.
Yeah, I just was calling to see if you had sold your home yet.
I have not.
You haven't? Okay, well, I work with a lot of buyers and sellers in the area, and so I would like to come out and take a look at your home to see if it fits for one of my clients. Would that be okay?
Sure,
Okay, would afternoon or evening be better for you?
evening.
Evening, okay, would like 5 o'clock tomorrow work?
Yes. that
Okay,
works.
great. Now, early on for me, when I was doing this, I started to do that. Now, did I set an appointment?
Not really,
I mean, I did, but not really. And why not really?
because you're trying to be the listing agent and you're saying that you're the buyer. So
Yeah,
you're
see,
saying what's that?
Almost, what I learned pretty early on was like, when I would go and try to set appointments and I didn't get one, early on in this process, I would call a for sale by owner and be like, hey, I've got a buyer that might be interested in your home. Could I come look at it? I didn't really have, like, and I wasn't telling them I was bringing a buyer, but I was just, you know, I want to come and look and see if it would work for my buyer. Yeah, you can come by at this time or that, you know, I'd set the appointment, I can be done, I set my appointment, I'm gonna go home now. But what I found out kind of early on was like, I was tricking myself, like, that's not really an appointment, because if I did that to you, Carmen, are you expecting me to talk to you about me listing your home? No, she's
Really?
expecting what?
You're gonna bring a buyer and she's gonna be upset if you pitch her.
Well, but I'm not, I told them I'm gonna come preview. I didn't say I was bringing them a buyer. I said I'm gonna come preview it to see if it would work. So
Yeah, just you showing up.
that's all she's expecting is me to show up. Like there's,
True.
so to me, that's where I guess what I found, like early on, I was like, good, I just set an appointment. But then I kind of realized just on my own, like I'm cheating myself by doing that because that's not really an appointment. So now if you did it this way though, if I did it this way, ring, ring,
So,
Hey Carmen, my name's Russ with Century 21. The reason I'm calling is I work with a lot of buyers and sellers in the area. And I just was calling to find out a little bit more about your home. Would you mind just kind of sharing with me some of the things that maybe you didn't put in the ad? That would be good to know.
okay,
Blah, 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 blah.
yeah,
Wow, Carmen, that is a beautiful, sounds like, why would you want to sell such a beautiful home that you put that much effort into?
just wanna move.
So you just want to move? Okay,
Yes.
so, and just something bigger, or what's causing you to want to move?
Downsize.
Good, okay, downsides. Okay, cool. Well, you know what would be helpful for me is if I could come by and just take a look at your home. And then while I'm there, I'll just spend maybe 15-20 minutes just sharing with you what I do to get a home sold. Would afternoons or evenings be better for you?
Evenings is fine.
Okay, so now if I can get that appointment, what is she expecting?
For you to tell her.
Yeah, for you to explain.
See, that's the difference, is if she knows I'm coming with, hey, I want to come take a look at the home, but while I'm there, I'll share with you what I do to get a home sold. All of a sudden now, that's an appointment for me. But the appointment before of just, hey, can I come take a look at your home? Because I work with a lot of buyers and sellers in the area. Like really quickly, I realized I was cheating myself. That's not really an appointment, okay? So ultimately, what questions do you have on this? Anything so far? I want to point out a few other things too, but. Go ahead.
I guess like, because at this point, it's more about like expectation, because just going with your first scenario, you could have set that first appointment and then showed up and just kind of started pitching her. And if you're good enough, you probably could have sold her, but where you run into the problem is her expectations. You didn't tell her you're not talking to her about anything else except for, hey, I just want to look at your home. So is that kind of the problem with that? So that is an appointment. You met with her and you could possibly
Yeah.
sell her.
And that's, yeah, so that's just
the
it.
expectation only.
So again, here, yeah, great question. Here's what I would tell you. In terms of this, here's the good news or bad news. I don't know how you want to interpret it, but the good news is you get to define for you what it means on this. And so the reason I say that, Aiden, is because here's why. Initially, that was my thought. So I would set an appointment to go look at Carmen's house. I would drive out there. I would get there. We would go look at the house. And then after I was done looking at the house, I typically would go, all right, well, so let me ask you what, if you can't get the home sold, like pretty quickly, they would figure out, you're not here because you really had a buyer, you're here for that. And yes, what you're saying is true. If you're good enough, you probably could still transition that. But again, this is just me personally. I just always then afterwards felt like a little bit of a scumbag that I was the slippery salesman kind. And for me, like, hey, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just for me, it didn't work. Like I didn't feel good about myself doing it that way. And so that's why I transitioned it to me of having to say, I want to come out and take a look at your home, but while I'm there, I want to just share with you what I do to get a home sold, what makes me different than other agents out there. Then they might go, well, that's fine, except for that we're not going to list our house. Well, that's okay. I'm not expecting you to list your house when I come out. I just want to be able to share with you and find out a little bit more of what you're trying to accomplish. I'll share with you what I could do to help you when you're ready. Okay, that's fine. Now I would count that. But if they were like, you can come look at it, but I don't want to hear anything about, what you're doing to sell a home, then again, you can decide for yourself. But for me, I just decided that wasn't going to count that. All right, questions? All right, the last phase of this is what we would call the transactions phase. Now, I never went to this phase in my real estate career, and it just out of choice. I just didn't ever do it. But you'll see probably why here in a second. but before I explain the transactions phase, let me explain this. In this appointments phase, I went from where I had done like $40,000 basically is what I had made. The next year, and I left this piece out, but here's what the guy told me. He said, if you'll go to this phase, you will prospect half as much as you did here. He said, you'll spend half as much time prospecting, but you'll double your income. So I was like, that's how he convinced me to, okay, tomorrow you don't go home until you set an appointment. Well, so that next day I showed up at 7:30 at the office. And somebody had asked when you could start calling. It's 8 a.m. is when you could start telemarketing. So I was 7:30 there getting everything ready. I had lined up for the sale by owners. I had lined up the expireds. I had everything ready to go. So right at 8 o'clock I could be, because I was scared, like, I don't know if I'm gonna set an appointment. So I just started calling all these leads of people that I had had. Hey, we talked a few months ago. You said you had thought about it. Just wanted to see if we could schedule a time for me to come out and talk to you. And within 2 hours, I had set the appointment. So typically, now remember, I was doing 4 to 5 hours a day and most days not setting an appointment. Yet all of a sudden now, within 2 hours, I had set an appointment. So I go walking in the house at noon and my wife's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm done for the day. And she's like, what do you mean you're done for the day? And I'm like, I set my appointment. Now, she was panicked though, because she had seen me doing this and still not really making money. All of a sudden now I'm walking in the door at noon and was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm gonna mow the lawn today and I'm gonna just, whatever. And she was like, I'm not sure I like this idea. And I was like, it's just for a week. Let's see what happens. Well, here's what happened is at the end of the week, I had actually scheduled an appointment every single day. So that next Wednesday, I had scheduled an appointment every single day that I'd work. I had never done that, like set 5 in 5 days ever prior to that. So at that point, like, and here's the other thing, I always did it within 2 hours. Within 2 hours, I would set an appointment. And so I noticed quickly what he said was true is that I was prospecting half as much. It typically took me less than 2 hours to set the appointment. Now, I didn't know what it was going to do to my income, but here's what I'll tell you. A year later, my income had doubled. The next year, it had doubled again. The next year, it didn't quite double, but it almost doubled again off of doing nothing but one new appointment. And so now, even back to what you were saying, Aiden, that's why I say right now for me, like, I don't really care what you guys determine it as. It's just if you can get them to agree to meet with you at a certain time, at a certain place for a specific purpose that's real estate related, that's all I care about. Now, whether you show up to the appointment or you don't, even if you to begin with are doing it like I did with Carmen of just, hey, I just want to come take a look at your house. Like at some point along the way, you're going to figure out that was a way, like that's what happened to me is I figured out that was yes, I counted as an appointment and I didn't have to prospect anymore. But at the end of the day, it wasn't getting me what I wanted, which was really just waste. It ended up being a waste of my time to go and do those. So I just quit doing them and just said, I got to step it up and actually set an appointment. Now, the next phase then of this. So I got to where I was doing really well and actually right around the 50 closings per year. Thank you. With doing nothing more, and my price point went up to where I wasn't just getting this either, by the way. But so for me, all of a sudden, 3 years later, I had way increased my income. Well, the next phase, if you want to go to the next level, which so for me, what I'm saying this transactions phase, this is where if you're wanting to make $500,000 or more a year, this is what you have to do. So if you're wanting to make over $500,000 a year in this phase to get to this one, is you have to keep one new appointment every day. So what would that mean here? Let me do it this way. If I had to keep one appointment every day, meaning I had to attend one new appointment every day, you have to attend one appointment with somebody you've never met with before. If that's the case, how are you going to do that? What do you have to do? That's right. You're essentially going to have to be doing 2 or 3 appointments here, because this is not set an appointment for every day. It's you actually have to attend a new appointment every single day. Somebody you've never met with before. See, for me, I was content. I mean, I'll just be honest and tell you the truth. I was content with my income that I got here to where I didn't say, I'm taking it to the next level. I was kind of like, I enjoy the time that I have and I'm not worried about it. But if I had wanted to, or if you want to go to this level, that's how you do it. Which means what Aiden said, you better be setting 2 or 3 appointments every day so that you can ensure that you're attending one.
We're getting real good at like going on your appointments.
You what?
Like, cause I mean, if you set an appointment and then like going on, it's kind of the, I want to, like, you just put that in your mind of like, okay, every appointment I set, I will attend.
Yes.
And that could make it work too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
That's it.
Okay,
I'll
so
put up this rubber
We
stamp.
good with this? Any questions on it? All right, so now let's go to the next level on this then. All right, so how do we now, I'm gonna erase this. Is that good? Everybody got what they, nobody's gonna get mad. All right, so now let's get to the next. So how do we get the appointments? So now in my prospecting that I'm doing, how do I get better at it? Because at the end of the day, that's the next step of this, is the next piece of this is, okay, how do I set the appointment? What do I need to do in order to set the appointments? So there's 3 things that have to happen in order for you to set an appointment. Okay, so that's what we're gonna go through next and talk about is what do you have to do? So just kind of so you guys know, and I probably should have started, an hour and 15 minutes ago, I should have said this, but today's gonna be kind of more about just the process of setting appointments. And then on Thursday, we're gonna go through, okay, how do we take what we talked about today and apply it to specific areas? Meaning we're gonna go through all, so on Thursday, we're gonna, I was gonna say we might do it today, but I don't think we will. We're gonna create a list of here's all the possible ways that you could set appointments. So we'll go through that and then we're gonna go through and talk about, okay, now how do you apply what we talked about today into those different areas? So kind of like the objective for me today on this, in fact, actually, if you remember on Thursday when we did the business plan, on the business planning section, there was sources of business. And I said, you should have 2 or 3 sources. One of them should be SOI and the other 1 or 2 could be whatever you want. I'm going to show you, I've got a chart that NAR does a survey every year of home buyers and sellers. And I'm going to show you how people choose their agent. And then we'll talk about how to effectively then apply what we're talking about now. Does that make sense? Okay. So connect is the first thing. So the first thing that has to happen in order for you to set an appointment, and again, I don't care what type of prospecting you're doing, this has to happen. The first thing that has to happen is you have to connect with the people. There's got to be a connection. Now, when I say a connection, I don't mean like the way that you guys are thinking, or we could even say / there's got to be rapport, okay? There's got to be a connection or rapport. Now, when I say that, though, a lot of times what people think about is rapport, is that if I go knock on Alex's door and I say to Alex, hey, my name's Russ, I'm in Century 21, blah, 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 and I see a cat walk by, I go, oh, you have a cat? What kind of cat is it? I love cats, they're so cute. I have cats too. Like, that's not connection and rapport, okay? Like, even if you like cats, and I'm not beating that up, but that's not what I mean by a connection or rapport. What I mean by that is you gotta, and you guys know what I'm talking about, meaning you've had phone calls where when you get on, you can tell their whole objective is to get off the phone, right? And like, it doesn't matter what I am that person, by the way. Like when I get the sales call and I answer it, which I always like hope, the part of why today, especially as I was getting I had 2 phone calls come in, specifically this class, like I'm gonna check to see who, because if it's a number that I don't know, I'll answer it to see if it's a salesperson, just to then use it as part of the class. But I didn't have any of those today. So I'm like, right now, like someone, come on, give me a sales call right now.
Actually, I don't want to do this class.
Oh, did you? I probably should start this
Yeah.
class by saying, if somebody
I
gets
know.
one, answer it and let's have some fun with it and see what happens. But I am the person who, though, when that happens, when somebody, when I answer the phone and I can tell it is a salesperson calling, what ends up happening is my objective, like I am totally the person you guys hate when you get them on the phone. Like, yep, no, not interested, not interested, nope, not interested, not interested, like to get off the phone. So when I'm talking about a connection, what I mean by this connection or rapport is that they're willing to talk. So now, let's go back to with Mary. When she said, was that, no, I can't remember if it was with you or Alex. Yeah, of coming from Maine or whatever, but let me say it this way, so forget that. You've all had a time when you've been on the phone where you can tell that the person's okay with talking to you. Yes? Versus the time when it's like the me that I'm like, nope. Yeah, nope, I just was checking them. I just was curious. Nope, not in, nope. Like, you can tell the difference, right? I mean, like, do I need to explain anymore? Or
Yeah,
we get it?
or a hang up is pretty good.
Hang-up's a pretty good clue that there's no connection or rapport. Good, thanks, Joe.
It shocks me more when someone wants to talk.
Yeah, right. So, okay, here's the thing. So what we've got to do is get this connection and rapport. So how do we do it? How do we get that? Because that's what's got, the first thing that has to happen in order for you to set an appointment is you got to get somebody to be willing to talk to you. Sorry, I need to drink real quick.
Finding their value, right?
That's number two. So how do we do it? Here's how we're going to do it. The first thing we have to do is we got to start by asking a question, okay? So ask a question. So the way that we're going to get this connection or rapport happening is, so let me go back to Alex's scenario. Hi, my name's Russ. I'm with Century 21. We just listed the home. It's got 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, listed for 700,000. I'm just wondering, who do you know that wants to move into the area? So there's the question. Who do you know that wants to move into the area? Now, here's the next piece of this on this connection and rapport. Now, and here's what I will tell you, as I watch agents do this, they try to do this, but they don't really typically do it very well. And it's the next thing I've got to do is repeat and affirm. Okay, so I got to repeat back what he said and affirm it. So, no, so knock, knock. Hi, my name's Russ. I'm a Century 21, blah, 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 blah. Who do you know that wants to move into the area?
No one.
No one. Okay, well, hey, I appreciate you taking the time to think about it. So notice, I repeat it back. No one? Okay, great. I appreciate you taking the time to think about it. What?
Yeah, like just make it feel like shit, kind of like you didn't think about it, but
Yeah.
you should be thinking about it.
So, how long have you lived in the area? So hold on, sorry. So I'm gonna ask a question. I'm gonna repeat and affirm back what he said. Then I'm gonna listen for what he's saying, I guess, and maybe that's probably a better way of saying it is I'm gonna ask, then I'm gonna listen to what he says, then repeat and affirm. Because sometimes agents don't even listen. Like, I'm amazed how many times that I'm listening to someone make calls and they don't even listen, actually. So listen to what they say, then repeat and affirm. So you don't know anyone? Well, hey, I appreciate you taking the time thinking about it. What about you? When do you plan on moving?
Not anytime soon.
So no time soon, really? Okay, so now that's the other one that you can do too, is we can repeat and the affirm on this one was more of a, I want to place more of a question in his mind. So instead, because he gave me a negative response, I'm gonna respond kind of more with a negative affirmation, if that makes sense. So I'm saying, no plans to move? Really? Like almost I want to plant in his mind of like, oh, I should be, like I should be planning to kind of, so really no plans to move. Okay, well, so let me ask you, how long have you lived at this address?
Just moved in last week.
Okay, now watch this. Okay, watch this. This is great. So now watch how I'm going to do this. And specifically, what I want you guys to do is watch his face when I do this, okay? So I'm going to ask it again, but pay more attention to him than me, okay? So how long have you lived at this address?
A week.
A week?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Where did you move from?
Ogden.
From Ogden to here?
Yeah.
Wow, really? What brought you down here from Ogden?
I wanted to be in a bigger city. Not too big, but bigger than Ogden.
Okay, so just kind of getting down into the bigger city from out of Ogden. Okay, that totally makes sense. I can see that. So what was it that brought you down here?
Mainly my job.
Oh, your job. Okay, cool. So what do you do for work?
I work in IT.
Oh, doing IT. Okay, so what kind of stuff are you doing IT with? Okay, but now, so what did you guys know? He didn't do what I thought he was gonna do, by the way, when I was saying watch it. Typically, and maybe it's because he had said last week, but typically, here's what I found for real. If I'm talking to them and he said 7 years or something, like 7 years? Really? See how he's, my goal is to try to get him to smile. 7 years? You're kidding. That's great. So what brought you here? Now, what are you guys noticing in how I'm doing this? Have you noticing anything specific, Aiden?
Sales is a transfer energy, so you're building rapport, you're putting your energy into him to make him think the right questions.
Okay,
Put
good.
him in the mindset to be thinking about the right questions.
Good. Yeah, I like that. So, and here's the other thing I'm going to add to that is the number one human need that we all have is accept. I mean, outside of food, shelter, clothes, but is acceptance. We all want to be accepted. We want to be right. Make people right. So what I'm doing is no matter what he says, so how long have you lived, make a different answer. How long have you lived at this address?
26 years.
26 years, you're kidding, that's great. So what is it that you love so much about your house? See, so all I'm gonna do is repeat and affirm. 26 years, good for you. So what do you love about being in the home? See, so I'm just gonna go to another question. What do you love about being in this house?
I was passed down from family.
Oh, you got, really? So how long has it been in your family?
2 generations.
So. Oh, well, that's not bad. I'm just kidding. So I'm gonna go 2 generations, really? So what are your plans to then you pass it on, or what are you thinking
Yeah.
that way?
I think so,
Okay,
but we'll see what my kids decide on.
sure, yeah, so how many kids do you have?
5.
See, now notice, all I'm doing is I'm asking a question, I'm repeating and affirming, and then notice I'm just building on what he says. But if my kid's like, oh, how many kids do you have?
18.
18, wow, holy cow. But that's, hey, I mean, 18, good for you. All from the same wife or? All right, so, but notice that what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna repeat and affirm. And as you do that, and if you will do it and you gotta be sincere on it though. Because sometimes I watch agents do it and this is what they do. So watch this time. I'm gonna show you how to not do it. Hello. Hi, my name is Russ. I'm a Century 21. We have a home listed for sale, blah, 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 blah. Who do you know that wants to move in here?
No one.
Okay, well, when do you plan?
Haven't thought about
How long have you lived at this address?
6 years.
Where'd you move from?
Whoa, sir, like.
What were you doing last Saturday at 7 p.m.? But can you feel the difference of that? Like what is the difference in the feel of the first time versus that?
I feel pressured, like I have to answer. It's not.
But, okay, good. But the other way, when I'm repeating and affirming, how does it make you feel?
Like you care what I have to say.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about in this connection, is you gotta create that. Now, there's one other piece to this that I was kind of waiting to see if it would come up, which it didn't, but that's okay. I'm just gonna write it here, is empathy. You have to empathize with people. So in the event, so let's go to, I'll come back over here to Carmen to show you the empathy. So I knock on her,
Hello.
Hi, my name's Russ. I'm a Century 21. Notice that you and I are gonna be in the same business for a while. You got your home for sale.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just was wanting to see, where are you planning to move to if you sell this home?
Probably Ogden, because
So-
everybody's going that way.
Ogden, okay, cool, good for you, that's great. So notice I'm repeating and affirming, hey, great, good for you. Well, let me ask you, why did you decide to sell the home yourself rather than list with like a powerful agent like me?
I wanted to save some money.
Oh, so you wanted to save some money. Yeah, if I were you, I would want to do the exact same thing. That's the empathy. See, as you're looking for them, when they say, the reason I tried to do this on my own is I wanted to save the commission. Hey, if I were you, I would want to save the commission too. Or let's say it's an expired listing, and you call them up or you knock on the door. Hey, I just was calling to see why you think your home didn't sell. Why, my agent, and you're the 50th person. Like a lot of times, even if for sale by owner, I knock on the door or call on the phone and they're like, we don't want to sell our home. At that point, you got to jump into empathy and just be like, so it sounds to me, Carmen, like you're getting hit by a ton of agents.
Yes.
Gosh,
Yeah,
which has got to be
twice a day.
twice a day. Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because you're just trying to get your home sold on your own, right?
Right.
I mean, it's got to be so frustrating to get all of those phone calls.
Yeah, pretty much.
If I were you, I'd be pretty annoyed by it.
Yeah, it is.
See, as soon as you do that, what happens by you doing that is almost you go from being an adversary to they're like, yeah, I know. And so then I'll say stuff like this. I mean, you kick a bush and a realtor runs out, it feels like, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Next thing you know, they're gonna be flying over your house in helicopters, dropping down pamphlets on, here's what I did to sell your house. See how she's kind of laughing? Like, that's what I want to do. If I can get somebody to react that way by using the empathy, hey, if I were you, I'd be frustrated with all those phone calls too. All you're really trying to do is save some commission, right?
Right.
Because then, what does that feel like to you when I'm saying that?
Like you understand what I'm going through.
That's right. See, that's the point of this. So if we got to get a connection with people, we've got to, the way you're going to do it is by asking them a question, repeating and affirming, and then either asking another question, or if it makes sense to use empathy, meaning they're frustrated or look, I'm getting so many phone calls from realtors lately. oh, you're getting tons of phone calls? Gosh, that's gotta be pretty annoying, right? So by getting that empathy in there is creates this connection, because now all they feel like is this person understands me and they're gonna be willing to talk to you. So make sure you're repeating and affirming. I sometimes will hear people do it this way. Knock, knock. Hi, my name's Russ, I'm a Century 21, blah, 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 blah. Who do you know wants to move into the area?
No one,
No one, okay. Well, so what about you? When do you plan on moving?
haven't thought about it.
Haven't thought about it. Okay, well, good. So, and where did you move from?
I don't know.
From Idaho to here. Good for you. So what brought you down?
My job.
See, I like him and his body language is already like, get this conversation over with. No, because no, I'm not being sincere in it. I'm just like, so your job brought you down here. Oh, that's exciting. Like, do I sound like I'm excited when oh, your job, that's exciting. So, well, let me ask you this. If you were to move, where'd you go next?
I don't know. I told you, I haven't thought.
Yeah, see, that, if you get, I told you, it's like, you're not listening. See, he's not feeling heard. So does that make sense? You guys good on it? Questions?
Can I expand a little bit?
What's that?
Kind of like a good
Sure.
expansion question. So I think that's one of the like biggest, I guess, kind of hardships for people to get into sales, because like those days you wake up, get a really hard night, you wake up super tired, you barely get in the shower, and like finally get to work. You need to come up with that energy to transfer that to someone else on a day that you don't have that energy, and that's really what makes like it's such a challenging business. Is you have to just bring that energy from nowhere, like to make things happen.
Mhm.
So
Can I let you in on a little secret?
yes.
That is exactly where I was today coming into this class. No, I'm serious. Like, I came into class
Yeah.
today, like, I really don't want to be in here and teaching class. But I will tell you that's changed now. Like, so my point is, to some extent, sometimes it's you have to get in and do it. Because here's the thing, like, I seriously came into today. In fact, Mary asked me before, so what are you going to talk about today? And what did I say? I don't know.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, we'll see what happens. We'll see what comes out. Like, I mean, and to some extent, I say that a little bit facetiously when I say that, meaning you'll notice I don't have a script here. Like, but if you went and watched a video, it's going to be about the same. But to some extent, I kind of vary it based off of who's there and in the class. So what I don't want you to feel like is that I don't want to be here now, because I'm good with it now. But honestly, like coming up here to start class today, I was like, I'm not in the mood to do this today. So to go where you're saying, to some extent, you also just have to remember, and I know this too, is I know once I get going, I'm going to be into it and I'm going to enjoy being with you guys and teaching it. But in the elevator coming up, I was like, in fact, actually, Crystal and I were here and I said, I'm confessing all my sins now.
Feel that worth, you know, got your-
That's right. That's right. You got it going. Good job. Actually, I said to Crystal, I kind of hope nobody shows up today. I just. All right, so I'm so glad you're here, though. I really am. So, all right. So yeah, sometimes you do, but here's at the end of the day. Here's the truth. If today, and so maybe let's sum it up this way on this point. If today, because of me coming up here and knowing, and I don't really feel like doing this today, if I would have just taught it that way, like, you guys would have left.
We get
Might
nothing
have
out of
been
it.
like,
Yeah.
oh, I've got an appointment.
Yeah, something. Yeah. But so part of what I'm saying is, if you, and I'm trying to remember where I got this, but I heard the saying is, if you don't have the energy to do the thing and you'll get the energy to do it.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm probably paraphrasing that poorly, but
Hallelujah.
yeah, exactly. But that's kind of where it is like, if you don't feel like doing it, you just got to get in and do it and fake it and it'll show up. Cause I'll tell you, my opinion's totally changed. And in fact, I will tell you, it's 11:30. If I was not feeling like it, we would have already covered everything I was going to cover and we would have been done. Like, I'd have been like, yep, we're out. So, all right. So does that help? I mean, you were expanding, but
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
right. So, okay, number 2. We'll save that for Thursday. No, I'm just kidding. Number 2 is going to be create value. Or I'm going to put / curious. You got to make people curious. Okay. So remember what we're talking about is how to set appointments. First thing that has to happen is I've got to get some connection and I've got to ask enough questions and then repeat and affirm to get them being willing to talk to me. And the best way to do it is going to be to build on what they're saying. So when I said, so how long you lived here? He said, however many years. So what brought you here? A job. Oh, a job. Really? That's cool. So what do you do for work? Well, I'm in IT. Really? What kind of IT do you do? See, I'm just kind of digging down deeper onto that, just asking the questions and then but you got to be sincere, or at least they have to feel like you're being sincere in that you really want to know what they're saying in order to create this connection. Once I've done that, the next step is then I got to create value or make people curious. Here's what I will tell you. Nobody will meet with you if they don't either see value in meeting with you or they're not curious of what you have to offer, they're not going to meet with you. But if they are, if you've created a connection and you create some value or they're curious, they'll meet with you. So that piece of it, I want to be really, really clear on. Nobody will meet with you if they don't see value or they're not curious. They're not going to meet with you. Now, it's possible to even not have a connection with somebody, but if they see value or they're curious, they'll still meet with you. So you have to create the value or make them curious. Now, a great book, if you want to get some more information on this, is The Secrets of Question-Based Selling. It's written by Thomas Fries, but it's Fries with an S, not a Z. Thomas Fries, Secrets of Question-Based Selling. In that book, he talks about making people curious. So the example that he uses that I love to use to talk about is leaving people a voicemail. Now, you're going to get differing opinions on this from different people that talk about should you leave a voicemail or you shouldn't. There are some people that would say you should never leave a voicemail. There are others that say leave a voicemail. Here's what I will tell you. If your voicemail that you leave does not make the people curious or create some value, you might as well not leave one. If you can leave one that will, then leave a message. But if it doesn't, then don't. So in the book, here's the example that he uses. He had this real estate agent that it's not a real estate book, by the way, it's just a sales book. But this particular section, he was talking with a real estate agent. This agent was calling farmers, trying to get them to sell their farm that then he would take to developers who would then go and develop the land and put houses on it and sell it. So this guy, Thomas Fries, is listening to this agent make phone calls and he leaves a voicemail. And the voicemail he leaves sounds like what our voicemails typically sound like. Hi, this is Russ with Century 21. And I was just calling to see if you are interested in selling your land because I've got developers that would be interested in purchasing it. So if you're interested in selling, give me a call back. How many times do you think you got a call back? Yeah, very rare that he would get a call back. So Thomas Fries says, let me help you because you got to make them curious. And so he said, watch this. So he said, the next one that you get a voicemail, I'll let him leave it. So Thomas left the message. So they're calling, the farmer doesn't answer, the voicemail clicks on. And this Thomas Fries takes over the call and he says, hello, Mr. whatever the farmer's name was. My name is, Russ Orchard with Century 21. I'm holding a copy of your tax records in my hand and I have some questions for you. Please give me a call back. Now, if you got that voicemail, hey, Caitlin, this is Russ with Century 21. I've got your tax records in my hand and I've got some questions for you. Give me a call back. What are you going to be thinking when you listen to that? Yeah, why are you holding my tax records? So here's the key thing. In the book, he says, make sure you print them off so that you actually have them in your hand. So you're not lying when you say, I've got them in my hand. But that farmer called back. It's like, why are you holding my tax records in your hand? Well, yeah, because I got some questions for you. And then basically his questions were, do you really have X amount of land? Like, so here's the thing. If you were to do that, like, so for a for sale by owner, like if you were calling for sale by owners and you get a voicemail and you leave a message that says, hi, this is Russ with Century 21. I was calling to see if you were interested in getting together and talk about selling your house. They're not going to call you back. But if I left that message to a for sale by owner, hey, I've got a copy of your tax records in my hand. I got a question for you. Give me a call back. They're probably calling you back because they're going to call back and say, well, why do you have my tax records? Well, I'm just curious because the tax records say that you had 2,500 square feet. Is that really how much you have? Well, yeah. And but now I got them on the phone, so now I could jump into this. Does that make sense? So when you're on the phone with people, you've got to create some value or create some curiosity for them. So again, let's talk for sale by owner again for a minute. So if I'm on the phone with Carmen again, and so are you okay with role playing with me for a minute again still? So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this in creating some value or making her curious, okay? So ring, ring.
Hello.
Hi, my name's Russ. I'm a Century 21, blah, 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 just blah, 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 blah. And I had said, you know, I work with a lot of buyers and sellers. Tell me about your home and why did you decide this beautiful home, blah, blah, blah. And we're talking about all of that. And so then I go, hey, so a quick question for you, Carmen. When you get an offer in, have you considered how you would use points as a way to negotiate a better offer to leverage that into the offer?
I haven't really thought about that.
Okay, so is that something you're aware of?
I'm not. no.
Okay, well, that's something that I do to help my clients. So now all of a sudden, hopefully what I've done is she's like, what are you, creating points to leverage into a, like, how many of you guys even know what I'm talking about? You do?
Yeah, point leveraging.
Okay, good. So, but notice though, that's the kind of stuff is if with the for sale by owner, you were to say something like that, hey, so let me ask you, have you considered how you could use points as a way to leverage an offer to make sure you get more money out of your property?
I haven't because I'm not, I don't know much about it.
Okay, so when would be a good time that you and I could get together and we could talk more about that? Or afternoons or evenings better for you?
Evenings is probably.
Okay, see now notice, as soon as you create some curiosity, so stop and think about that. When you're, so let's do one, since I know a bunch of you guys are doing internet leads, let's do one for that, okay? So I'll pick on you now.
Which one?
All right, so I'm calling off an internet lead, okay? So ring ring.
Well,
Hi, is this Aiden?
yeah, who's this?
Aiden, this is Russ with Century 21. You had signed up on my website and I was just calling to get an idea of what you were looking for in a home.
I mean, we're trying to browse at the moment. It's probably my wife that logged on, never signing on.
So it was probably your, so now notice, I'm gonna do the same stuff. So it was probably your wife that did it. It wasn't you that had logged on. Okay, no worries. Well, the reason I ask is because I come across some really good deals on properties before they hit the market. So I just wanted to get an idea of what you're looking for.
Okay, I mean, we've been thinking about it. I mean, she said she probably looked, but we need at least 3 beds and 2 baths and we can stay in here. Lehigh.
So 3 beds, 2 baths, kind of in the Lehigh. God, you know what? I actually think I might know of a couple properties that could work for you. Would you have some time tomorrow or Saturday to go take a look?
Yeah, I think tomorrow. I'm off at 4 o'clock.
Okay, well, so ultimately, what I'm doing in this scenario is what I was expecting him to say, so let's go back to what I said. I come across some really good deals on properties before they hit the market. So if you give me an idea of what you're looking for, I could keep an eye out for you. Well, what's going on in the market today? Yeah, so to some extent, I'm wanting to create some value to that buyer of, I have access to properties before they're gonna hit the market. Now, what do they usually say to you though? Well, can you just send it over to me? Can you just send it over to me? Now, here's the key. I already said before they hit the market. So now ask me that. So hey, I come across some really good deals before they hit the market. If you give me an idea what you're looking for. Okay, did my energy drop?
No, I gotta go. I gotta be smart.
No, it's my fault. I gotta go. All right, I'm just kidding. Thanks for coming. See ya.
Oh yeah, just send it to me.
Okay, so here's the thing though, like I said, I actually come across these before they hit the market, so there's actually nothing to send to you.
See.
So what I would like to do though is find out if they're still available. We could go take a look at them. What works best for you, afternoon or evening?
After 4.
After 4 o'clock. Okay, boom. Okay, does that make sense though? What I'm talking about here, you gotta create the value. We good?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like pulling on there because like everyone's kind of natural reactions to hang up the phone and not talk to you, but now there's like one pulling up. You don't want to talk to them, but there's value.
But there's like, yeah, but
this kind of pulls a little bit harder.
Yeah. So I had one that I did this with, it was last May, so a little over a year ago. I had done early on, this was still fairly early on with COVID hitting, and we were kind of just trying to get people anything class wise we could get going. So I was in this room, I had said, hey, if a couple people want to come up in the room, make some calls, if not, jump on Zoom, we'll make calls together. Nobody was making calls. And I'm like, did all you guys just show up to listen to everybody else make calls, or are we gonna make calls? Nobody would respond. I'm like, unmute so I can hear your phone ringing. Nobody would do it. So I finally was like, all right, I'll make some calls then. So I jumped on and just started making calls and let them listen to me. And I got a lady on the phone that I did exactly what we were just talking about. Had come across some really good deals, and she was like, well, this is what we would want, but we're not really that serious about it. We were just kind of browsing. And I'm like, that's fine, but I know of some potential properties. And in fact, I had one that a friend of mine had, what she said they wanted in a home, a friend of mine had called me. He lives in St. George. His dad lived in North Salt Lake, Bountiful, kind of right on the border there. And he said, my dad wants to sell his place. Will you come and help us? So I had gone and looked at it. She explained what she was looking for in the home. And I was like, this one will be perfect for you. So I know of it. Like, I actually had a legit, I know of a property that could work for you that's not on the market yet, if you're interested in it. And I scheduled an appointment, took him and showed him that house and one other house. And keep in mind, they were like, nah, we're not even that serious. And my whole purpose of me making phone calls that day was only because nobody else was. But I set an appointment with her, what took her out, showed her that. I think I ended up showing them 4, maybe 5 houses, and they bought one and closed on it. So like, here's the point being on that is I just created the value by saying, I know of a property, it's not on the market yet. You wouldn't have to be competing to get it. And granted, last May, it wasn't near as competitive as it has been the last number of months. But I created the curiosity or the value for her to meet with me. And here's the thing. Her mother-in-law is an agent in Chicago, and typically they would have wanted to refer them, but I was able to get her to want to use me so that she told her mom, I finally said, tell your mom I'll pay a referral fee to her. So, okay, last thing we'll talk about for today is the third thing that has to happen in order for you to set an appointment is you have to close. And here's the thing, there's only 5 ways in the English language to do that. And here's what it is. What time? Were you guys disappointed, by the way, when I said like I wasn't excited? Like looking in your faces, I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that. 'Cause-
I was the same age.
Okay,
I
good.
thought the same thing this
I-
morning.
Well, you get more jazzed up the more you get.
Yeah, okay, good. Because when I said that, the look on you guys' face was like, what? I thought you guys. It was like, you guys are like depressed that I didn't love you. I do love you. All right. All right.
Made me feel better that he feels the same way.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make you feel bad that I wish none of you would, at the start, I wish none of you would have come.
I didn't want to come either.
No, what I was telling Crystal actually is, you know what's worse than nobody coming? One person showing.
Oh, I
That's
know.
the worst. I've only had that happen one time in my whole time of teaching, that I've had one person show up, but I was like, afterwards I went home and I told my wife, I'm like, one person showing up is worse than nobody. Like nobody, you could just be like, oh, well, I don't have to teach.
But the one person you have to.
Yeah, you still got to do it. So, all right.
I've been here when there's only 2 of us. I hope that doesn't make you feel too bad.
No, well, but there was a ton on Zoom too, though.
That's true.
Yeah, so the good news, how many you got? You got 10 on Zoom today. So Zoom is still outnumbering us here, not by much though. All right, so what time, which time, how soon? When? And where?
Which time?
Yep, what time, which time, how soon, when, and where? Those are the only ways in the English language that you can ask for an appointment, is what time, which time, how soon, when, or where. If you say anything besides that, you're not asking for an appointment. If you said to somebody, can we get together? So if I said to Mary, can we get together? What am I asking her?
Yes or no?
Close. Can we get together? I'm asking really, I mean, it is a yes or no, but what, but if you look at if you analyze the, well, let me say it this way. Can you fly? What am I asking?
I can, but
Like, yeah, I'm asking if it's possible. So it's really about, if I say, can we get together? I'm asking about possibilities. Does that make sense? So let me ask you guys, is it possible for them to get together with you?
Yeah.
So then we really shouldn't ask, can we get together? Because we already know we can. The only question is,
when, where,
question.
Yeah, what time are we gonna get together, or which time, how soon, when, or where, right? Okay, how about this one? Would you like to get together? What am I asking if I say to somebody, would you like to get together?
Well, you're giving them an out.
Okay. Okay, but so if I said to Denise, would you like to get together? Analyze the question. What is the question really asking?
Together, which is also just possible.
Well, it's actually asking if she would like it. Would you like to get together? I'm asking, would you like it? It's almost like, would you like it if we got together?
And I might say
Yeah.
No, I have other things
Does
to
it
do.
matter if she would like it? Like, when you have to go to the dentist, do you like to go to the dentist? Okay, but you still need to go to the dentist, so it's not a matter of would you like to, so it's not about liking. It's not if you like it or not, it's what time, which time, how soon, when, or where. Okay, how about this one? This one's the worst one. Well, actually, watch this. I'm gonna show you. Alex, why don't you give me some money?
What would I have?
Mary, why don't you give me some
I don't know,
money? Okay. Herman, why don't you give me some money?
because I don't have any.
Okay, and why don't you give me some money?
For what?
Okay,
It's
fun?
Yeah,
Okay, Denise, why don't you give me some money?
I don't, you give me money.
Well, because I asked you first. Okay, Joan, why don't you give me some money?
Well, why should I?
Because I like it. I'll do good things with it.
Will I get it back?
Probably not.
No,
Okay, why don't you give me some money?
because I already gave away all my money.
Oh, okay. How much money did I just get?
Zero. None.
So what did I get though?
A
And,
lot
and
of.
notice what I asked.
objections.
Why don't you give me some money? And what did you guys tell me?
Like,
a
what
bunch of
would-
different answers.
You're right, different answers of, but telling me what?
No.
Why you weren't gonna give me money? Guess what happens if you say to somebody, Alex, why don't we get together?
But do we have to?
They're gonna tell you the reason you're not gonna get together. See, don't ask, if you ask somebody, why don't we get together? They're gonna tell you the reason you're not gonna get together. No different than what I just did with you guys. Why don't you give me some money? And every one of you gave me the reason you weren't gonna give me money. Instead, what we want to be asking is what time, which time, how soon, when, or where. Now, you've noticed, or you may not have noticed, but hopefully you noticed, prior to all of this, every time I was doing a role play, I was saying, what works better, afternoons or evenings? That is just a version of which time. I'm giving them two different times. So what works better, afternoons or evenings? So I could have said, Alex, which time is better, afternoons or evenings? See, that's the only way you can ask for an appointment in the English language. If you are not starting it with one of these or some version of this, like, which works better after, what?
What, when, where, why?
That's right. If you're not starting it with one of these, you're not asking for, if you're saying, would you like to get together? Can we get together? Is there a time we can get together? Is there a time we can get together is just the same thing of asking, does it exist?
Yeah.
Well, we already know it exists. It's only a matter of what time, which time, how soon, when, and where. So make sure when you're asking for appointments, you're using one of those versions to ask for the appointment. Does that make sense? Okay, now let me tell you real quick a story on this. I had an agent in this class one time. This was probably maybe 10 years ago now. But I was going through this and I was explaining this. This is the only way you can ask for an appointment. And this agent challenges me. This was a seasoned agent. She had been licensed long time. I mean, I don't remember how long, but over 10 years. And she said to me, well, Russ, I say, can we get together all the time? And I get plenty of appointments. Now, so let me pause for a minute and explain two things from that. Number one, if you create enough value or curiosity and you say, can we get together? They probably will say yes. So just kind of so you know that I'm not saying you won't get appointments by saying, can we get together? If they see enough value or they're curious enough, they will set an appointment with you. But if they're not sure and you say, can we, they're probably going to tell you no. Okay. So that agent said that to you. So here's the key. If what you're doing is working, you don't have to change it. And that's what I told her. I said, that's perfect. I said, if you're saying, can we get together? And you're telling me it works perfect and you get all the appointments you want, don't change it. You don't need to change anything. Keep doing it. But if it's not working for you and you want to get more appointments, I can promise you, if you'll do this, you'll set more appointments. And she said, no, yeah, I'm good with it. I said, great. Now, Me being me, after the class was over, I was like, I gotta go look up and see how much business this lady does. So I looked up how many transactions she had done the year before. Guess how many? 2. I was like, yeah, that's working great for you. You did 2 transactions in the last year. You're killing it. Keep doing that. And so here's what I've learned. If you want to do 2 transactions a year, ask, can we get together?
Yeah.
It'll work out.
I was gonna say, well, let's say she had more transactions. Yeah, imagine her saying, can we, does get her business. What if she used one of those?
That's right.
The people that rejected her because of the can.
Yep.
would be more.
I just thought it was so funny though, because she fought me so hard on it. It works great for me and I do plenty of business. And then I looked it up and she had done 2 transactions in the last year. I was like, yeah.
It is like $1 million house or anything.
No, what? Yeah. If it would have been two $10 million houses, okay. No, it was in Ogden, actually, wherever the Ogden stuff came from. So back then, 10 years ago, how much was average price in Ogden? Probably, yeah, 150. So she sold, she made $9,000 for the year. So yeah, it was working great. So.
Did
she
change afterward?
No. No, the fact that she was fighting me that way, like she wasn't gonna change. Yeah.
I was just curious if you've heard anything about why people are actually wanting to go to Ogden. I've heard a little bit, reports on that is kind of one of the fastest
Yeah.
growing areas in Salt Lake.
Well, it's not Salt Lake, but
Well,
in
yeah,
Utah.
in
yeah.
yeah,
That's the point.
in Utah, basically. And
There's a college there. we were
Yeah,
saying.
well,
But
they've done a
that's
lot of
been
revitalization, like
okay. that's-
Year-
that's nice.
a few years ago, yeah, Larry Miller kind of went up there and invested a bunch of money and kind of revitalized
That
the
makes
city.
They have like a downtown.
Mhm.
lots of
Yeah, they
parks.
created more
I
of a
lived there for
downtown.
5 years, so I
Yeah.
can kind of back that. My brother
Yeah.
lives there.
Yeah, that makes more sense than that.
Yeah.
I'll just, I've been there several times, scratching my head.
Well, and honestly, to some extent, is price wise too, is kind of what it more affordable than what Salt Lake is.
Well,
so,
and that's what they were saying, is it used to be, now,
Yeah,
again, not so much.
Not so much,
because it's
right.
Staying kind
That's
of
right.
about the same.
got
Correct.
lake there up the canyon.
Yeah, there's
Uh-huh.
a lot of outfits.
There's Eden up there.
Yeah, there's some good
Right,
areas.
but I guess my question is, all of that has been there.
that lake didn't all of a sudden appear over the
forever,
last few
and
years,
then
yeah.
all of a sudden, people were.
Probably because people invested in the city.
Yep, that is what
And
it
there is
is.
a bigger downtown, so
Yep.
there's more options.
That is what it
people
is.
to do.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
so,
Just don't live in Central. You find all the crackheads.
yeah, but then they're cleaning it up as
Oh,
well.
yeah, it's
so
coming-
that
it's
the
coming
housing
off,
crisis
yeah.
is going up.
It's way better than what it used to.
All
be.
right, I've lost control, so I guess we're done. All right. Cool. Okay, so anyway, so here's so we're done for today. So what Thursday is gonna look like is I'm gonna start with one other piece that I'm gonna go through, which we're gonna go through and explain the buyer and seller cycle, the process that people go through before they buy and sell. And then what we'll do on Thursday is we're gonna make a list and then I'm gonna go through some detail on, here's how I would work expireds, here's how I would work for sale by owners, here's how I'd work whatever. We're just gonna go through all that stuff on Thursday. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks for being here. Thanks for turning my crappy attitude on.
And now you're gonna have a great day.
Now I'm having a great day.
Are they actually
turning my
next
attitude
I
around.
know.
week starting morning assignment?
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
But they're still doing it.
Yes,
So they just want one.
yes. So ultimately, what the difference is gonna be is typically like the way I've been doing Zoom or the way George does, is like you're focused on the screen. And actually even these classes early on, I was teaching them more focused to Zoom. You guys will notice now, and no offense to you guys on Zoom, but I pretty much ignore Zoom and teach here. Morning Ascent's gonna be more that way too.